All right. So just a quick reminder, although I don't really need to do this for this audience because you've been great, but it's a new panel. So a quick reminder that the rules of civil justice. Oh, and for you on the panel, my name is Katie Watkins, and I'm with the Palos Verdes League of Women Voters, and they asked me to come down and be moderator. Torrance area did. So it's a quick reminder that the rules of civil discourse are maintained for both the candidates and the audience as set forth at the beginning of these forums. The candidates have all agreed to participate under rules set for the forum. So this next forum is for the office of treasurer. There are 5 candidates running for that position. They are Dana Cortez, Tim Goodrich, Mike Griffiths, Rick Marshall, and Melissa Wright. Let's go over the ground rules for the forum again. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for opening remarks. The timekeeper, has moved. She's over here now. The timekeeper will signal candidates with colored signs marked 1 minute, 30 seconds, and stop. So I appreciate it if the speakers will look up every once in a while and notice if she's holding up a sign. So if you do have, I have plenty of questions here to get through, but if you have something that you feel strongly about, raise your hand, write it on a card, raise your hand, and we'll see if we can fit it in. They'll come pick it up. So now let's begin. Let's see, what time is it? We're only 2 minutes late. That was good. Okay, let's now begin with the first candidate for the office of treasurer. We will proceed in alphabetical order as we did before. So we'll go in alphabetical order and switch back and forth for the questions. And at the end, for the closing, then it'll go in the opposite alphabetical order for the 2 minutes. Okay. Just get... Candidates' opening statements will begin, and we will start with Dana Cortez. You have 2 minutes.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here and participating in this forum. I want to say thank you to the League of Women Voters for providing this platform so that the community can be informed during the election process. My name is Dana Cortez, and I have been serving this community faithfully for the past 22 years. Of those 22 years, as your elected city treasurer. I'm a devoted mother. I am a volunteer in many nonprofits within the community. I am certified as city treasurer, both at the state level and the national level, and I am also certified as financial investment officer at the national level. I am here because of you. This is your office, your voice. I have no endorsements, and that was purposely done because it is important that this community know that the only person that I answer to is you. I have no special interests. I don't have any special alliances to anyone. My voice is your voice. Your elected office, I serve you. There is nothing that I will hold back in reference to the performance of the office, and any questions that have to do with what happens in the treasurer's office, I gladly will respond to. Why? Because that's what your elected office expects. I am your eyes and ears. I am your watchdog. And that's my obligation as your city treasurer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Goodrich, 2 minutes.
Hello, I'm former council member Tim Goodrich. First of all, thank you to the League for hosting this forum and for all of you attending and watching at your homes. I'm running for city treasurer to fix the numerous problems that exist within the office and restore faith in the position. As has been widely reported in the Daily Breeze and city staff reports, the tenure of 2 of the last 3 treasurers has been marred by scandal. We were lucky with Linda Barnett. She was a great treasurer. But this systemic problem, with its numerous errors, mismanagement, and negligence, has cost taxpayers millions of dollars. My plan to restore faith in the city treasurer's office can be broken down to CPR. C, conduct an independent third-party audit to certify appropriate checks and balances exist. P, professionalize the position by modernizing it and establishing minimum qualifications, because none currently exist. And R, reduce the exorbitant pay of the position to be in line with the duties and save the taxpayers' money. I'm the only candidate in this race who has a vote on the record in the Torrance City Council to reduce the current pay of the treasurer. By day, I'm a risk manager and an investor. I have a bachelor's in business administration, a master's in public administration, and I was a city and county management fellow at USC. Using my background and qualifications, I intend to reform this position into an oversight position, just like the cities of Redondo Beach, Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach, Palos Verdes Estates, El Segundo, Gardena, Hawthorne, and many others have done. This will save taxpayers an incredible amount of money into the future and restore faith in the city treasurer's office. If you want to fix our broken treasurer's office and reduce the extreme pay, vote for Tim Goodrich for Torrance City Treasurer on June 7th. My website is timgoodrich.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goodrich. Mr. Griffiths, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mike Griffiths, and I'm currently serving my 8th year as a Torrance City Council member. I care about our city, and that's why I've served the city of Torrance now for over 16 years, initially on several commissions, and now for almost 8 years on City Council. And I want to continue to serve our city. In early 2018, our city manager brought to the attention of council a significant list of problems happening in the city treasurer's office. We as a council took action to try to protect the city by transferring a significant portion of the treasurer's job duties to the finance department, and we reduced the wages paid to the city treasurer by half, commensurate with the reduction in job duties. Had this position been appointed, we would have likely terminated the current treasurer. But being elected, that option is not available to us, as only the voters can remove an elected official. And why choose me? Experience, dependability, respectability, and integrity. My experience comes from 15 years as CEO and CFO of my own multi-million-dollar computer business, which I grew and successfully sold. Managing the finances of the company as well as the employees gives me the skills needed to manage the treasurer's duties and office. Also, in my 8 years on City Council, I have reviewed, questioned, and approved the monthly treasurer investment reports and the annual investment policy documents. Dependability. In almost 8 years on the City Council, I've only missed 2 meetings, and roughly the same for my 8 years prior to that as commissioner. The only time I've resigned from a position was to take a new position. Respectability. As an elected official who has a demonstrated history of caring for our community and the repeated confidence of you, the voters, I've proven you can count on me, and I won't embarrass our city. Integrity. I have a proven track record as your council member of upholding the highest level of ethics and integrity. I thank you for listening today, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Griffiths. I would like to remind the candidates that they have agreed to not make personal comments. So I do have the power to shut down this forum, so if we need to adhere to those rules, please. Mr. Marshall.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is G. Rick Marshall. I'm running to be your city treasurer because you, my friends and neighbors, deserve a watchdog in office, not a lapdog for City Hall insiders. My service to our city includes 2 terms as a city commissioner. I've served as vice chair of the Water Commission and chairman of the Planning Commission. I have a degree in business administration. The office of city treasurer is a temporary grant of trust, not an obligation owed to the winner. It is a platform to serve, not a tool to acquire pension, health, or retirement benefits. Almost 4 years ago, our city council, after considering a 300-page investigation report into the performance of our current city treasurer, modified the treasurer's duties, taking away cash management and violating, in my view, the city charter. Those duties were transferred to the city finance director. But Section 603 is clear. The city treasurer is to receive and safely keep all monies and pay out monies, and that requires cash management. No one seemed concerned about the charter duties of the treasurer that night, but I am, and my concern is not new either. In 2020, I wrote the argument opposing Measure J, the council plan to make the elected treasurer an appointed position. Voters agreed, and it was defeated. In fact, had it not been defeated, we wouldn't be having this conversation this evening. A year before, I led the recall of our city treasurer for taking a paycheck but not showing up for work. If elected as your city treasurer, I will reclaim the cash management duties of the treasurer granted in the charter. I will vigorously defend the charter prerogatives of the treasurer because in the end, they are your prerogatives and I work for you. I offer public service, not self-service. I look forward to answering your questions about how we can restore the office of city treasurer back to its rightful and full function. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Ms. Wright?
Yes. Once again, thank you to the League for hosting tonight and for all of you for being here. We, the voters, need to be aware of what's happening in our elected offices. The role of the city treasurer in Torrance has changed. Most of the duties have been delegated to other city departments. What was once a full-time position has lately become part-time, if that. As I always say, if you see a problem, be a part of the solution. This is why I decided to run for city treasurer. Reflecting over my past, I realize that I've spent most of my adult life in positions involving finance. This has aided in my decision to run for city treasurer. I will restore professionalism, respect, and transparency to this office. A little bit about me. I was born and raised in the South Bay, like that 90502 people. But while at Narbonne High School and into college, I majored in accounting, and I worked part-time at McDonald's, my first job, and that's when I was promoted to manager. This is also where I met my Mr. Right. After we married, I went to work full-time for the owner of multiple McDonald's restaurants, and I was trusted daily with counting and preparing deposits for each store and reconciling and completing other bookkeeping tasks. This is when I first began what turns out to be my future in finance. Tomorrow, May 4th, happy anniversary, hon, I will have been married to Mr. Wright and have lived in our Torrance home for 37 years. I am proud to say I'm a mother of 2 adult children who were born and raised in Torrance, attended Torrance schools, and are college graduates. Our son lives in Florida, where he's serving in his 8th year in the United States Air Force, and our daughter is married, has a great career, and has blessed us with 2 beautiful grandchildren. I have always been a community member, very active in Torrance by investing countless hours of time and energy in my community, schools, and the city. I have demonstrated my leadership and financial skills both in paid and volunteer positions. You can see my website for more information on that, and also brochures outside, including my 10 years on the Civil Service Commission, and presently I'm on the city's Culture Arts Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will begin with the questions. We will start with Ms. Cortez, and we will go in alphabetical order and switch with each question down one person. So everyone gets a chance to answer first. First question is, there's been I heard on the discussion that many of you were talking about the makeup of the office. So what do you feel is the correct amount of time each week that a city treasurer should be at work? Let's start with Ms. Cortez, please. 1 minute.
As stated before, the city charter is very clear. When it was developed and specifically said that the treasurer's duties are the cash management. Money's coming in, money's going out. Inclusive with that, as years have gone by, additional duties have been added to the office. Now, the council and city manager were the ones who decided to violate the charter and change these duties to the finance department. The city attorney was questioned when this change was taking place, and I was told the monies didn't reach your hands, so therefore there is no violation. I'm speaking out because this is your voice, your oversight, your office, and you are obligated to be aware of what's happening in your elected office. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Goodrich, please, 1 minute.
What is the correct amount of time to spend in this office? I can't tell you that answer right now because there's been a great deal of tumult in the office over the past several years. Many changes have taken place. I can tell you I don't want to change it back to the way it was for 2 reasons. One, I think it would be incredibly disruptive to staff after spending 3 years getting the position stabilized to then say, oh, we're going to reverse course and go back completely opposite to the way we were before. Two, because I believe there's a systemic problem where a job that pays very well, that has no qualifications whatsoever for experience other than to be able to get elected, leads to problems. And we've seen that occur twice now in recent history. So I want to make this into an oversight position, and I'll spend as much time as necessary to get that done and make sure the proper oversight is ensured.
Thank you, Mr. Goodrich. Mr. Griffiths?
Thank you. As far as time required to do the job, I'm prepared to give as much time as necessary to do the job. I live obviously close to City Hall. I'm already at City Hall every council meeting, so it's a normal part of my schedule, and I'm prepared to do that. Initially, there's going to be a lot of work. There hasn't been anyone, as far as I'm aware, working in the treasurer's office for a number of years. And so we currently have no deputy city treasurer. So the first things we need to do is rebuild the office and get it functional and resume the duties that were intended by the council's decision in 2018, which is significantly less duties than what it was prior to that. I'm also prepared to take on any of the original duties that the city council is willing and wanting to give to whoever is in the treasurer's office, and if that's me, I'm more than willing to take on those tasks and give the time required to do that job and do the job properly.
Thank you. Mr. Marshall?
Yes, I would have to agree with everyone else that it's difficult to know just what sort of time can be put into this office because the duties are undefined. I think we need to define what those are, and as I've said in my opening statement, we need to get back to the charter duties, and that includes cash management. There's a whole function that resides under the city finance director right now that needs to be back in the city treasurer's office. I would like to see that back, and if I'm privileged enough to be elected, I will fight to get that back. I think once we define the duties, then we'll know how much time can be spent. I'm not opposed to a part-time position, but I'm also realize that rebuilding the office is going to take time, and I expect that initially it'll be a full-time position. I will commit to you that if elected city treasurer, I will show up at council meetings. I will show up at the places where we need to have reports read and be a city treasurer that fully performs my duties.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Wright?
Yes. How much time do I think should be spent in the city treasurer's office or to do the job? Whatever it takes. If it's 80 hours a week, if it's 4 hours a week, which I know it won't be. That's what I think we need to do. You do what it takes. And that's what I have the confidence and the eagerness to do. I want to do this. You're getting a little bit of information tonight about how rearranged the duties are. We will be getting those set in stone. That's one of my first things I want to do is get this well-defined so we all know what we're doing and the city knows what we're doing, the public. And after that, then they will determine the amount of hours. But I think we give whatever hours that it takes to get the job done. And so I'm going for it full-time right now, and I see that's where we're going.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. All right. The next question will start with Mr. Goodrich. The question is, what makes you uniquely qualified to be the city treasurer?
What makes me uniquely qualified? I have a bachelor's in business administration. I went to USC where I earned a master's in public administration and was a city and county management fellow. By day, I'm a risk manager and investor. But to be completely honest with you, I don't think there's a single person at this table that is qualified for this position. I see this position going two different ways. We could double or triple the pay to get a C-suite executive in here that has the unique experience for the position to do it right. Or we can reduce the pay and make it into an oversight position like many cities in our immediate area have done, and it has worked successfully that way. Doing this, the latter, reducing the pay, which I propose and plan to bring forward to the council within 1 year after my election, a plan to reduce this pay and ask them to do so, will save the city approximately $100,000 every year in perpetuity.
Thank you. Next questioner. The next question is to Mr. Griffiths. Same question,
Okay.
sir. All of you will answer the same question, and then we'll.
Thank you. I'm uniquely qualified, as I said in my introductory statement, for 4 reasons: experience, dependability, respectability, and integrity. You've all seen me working for the city for the last 8 years. I think you know my track record of dedication to the city and willingness to do the hard jobs that have to be done. Another thing I forgot to mention earlier as far as the time required to spend in the office is I have no other employment. Currently, my city council work is the only work that I do, and I put in far more hours for city council than I would likely be spending on treasurer's office, but I'm prepared to put in whatever's required, and because I have no other conflicts for my time. So again, as a CEO, C-level executive, in my own multi-million-dollar computer business, I understand what it takes to run a business. I manage employees and manage money. As a chief financial officer of that same business, I understand how to make money and make it grow and be successful. 15 years of running my business, every year increased our profits 1 year after the other for the whole time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Marshall.
Thank you. I'm uniquely qualified because I have demonstrated that I care about this office. I'm not a person who thinks you have to be an expert to hold this office, because this is an elected office. The person is to report to you. They are to be your eyes and ears in the office. And I think that takes a person with common sense, and I think I have that common sense. We don't need experts. This is a highly regulated position. You're not going to have one person run off with millions of dollars of city funds. That's not how it works. There's committees, there's regulations, there's authorizations, all of that works. But I do think what you need someone who understands the kind of common sense approach to things you need and would raise concerns and questions when it's appropriate, like, hey, you're taking away charter duties, and we should not be doing that. I understand we had problems, but the office is a mess now because we violated the charter. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Wright.
Yes. I feel I'm uniquely qualified because I am one of most of us here that have been very active in the city. But for the last 35, almost 37 whole years, I have volunteered in any capacity that is important to me. As time goes, at first it was with the schools, the kids are little. Then they go on and they went to middle school and then into high school, and then I did more. And so then I started with the city. So I've served on this for 10 years on the Civil Service Commission and moved from there. And I've even worked in the city clerk's office part-time. But mine is just the caring. I want to make a difference. I see a problem. I really do want to fix this. And I want everybody to be know that it's transparent and what we're voting for tonight, and that you know what kind of person you're going to have and what job is entailed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. Ms. Cortez.
I have already explained to the community all of my certifications, but that's not what's really important here. Why am I uniquely qualified? I've been doing the job for the past 12 years. I have been transparent. I have reported to the community. When things were being done behind closed doors and the charter was being violated, I was the one who spoke to the city manager and demanded that this closed session information be given to the community regardless of how it reflected on me. Why? Because you are entitled to know what happens in your elected office. And I am not one to keep anything hidden. That's not why you elect someone to represent you. You expect transparency, you expect honesty, you expect integrity. And regardless of how it reflects on me as a person, my responsibility as an elected official is only to the community. Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to the next question. We'll start with Mr. Griffiths. The question is, what is your plan in managing the city's extensive portfolio?
Well, my plan to manage the extensive portfolio, depends on a lot of things. First of all, if we don't have the income from the sales tax initiative, we won't have much money to invest. But certainly we need to invest that money safely. We need to make sure that there is liquidity in order to be able to pay our bills promptly and on time. We have payroll that must be paid. Our vendors have to be paid in a timely manner. And so all those things have to be taken into consideration in investing things. And we also want to make sure that our investments are not risky. We don't want to lose money on our investments. Now, thankfully, the job of investing money is tremendously regulated. There's an annual investment policy that the city treasurer puts forth, which gets approved by the mayor and city council. And I'll be involved in that process and making sure that the investment policy is appropriate for our city's needs and desires, and we maintain and manage the appropriate amount of risk for the appropriate amount of income and the appropriate amount of liquidity.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Marshall.
I agree with Councilman Griffiths that the extensive portfolio won't be much to manage if we don't have some income. I will also say that probably the biggest job for the next 4 years will be making sure we're liquid as a city and that we can meet payroll and that we can meet bills. And as your city treasurer, that will be my #1 priority. I agree that the office is highly regulated. There's committees that do these things. The treasurer can make recommendations, but there's a committee and an investment policy, and all of those things need to be followed. I will certainly actively participate, but again, I don't think, given the dire straits that we are in as a city, that we will have the funds, that it's going to take a lot of investment. Our problem is digging out of a hole because we're broke. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wright.
Yes. Like stated before, the objectives of the whole investment portfolio is safety, liquidity, and yield. And it doesn't sound like we have any money, but what's nice about investments is we don't have them all coming up and maturing at the same time, and that's part of the plan in the investment policy. So every month, we have, going out for 5 years, we have different things coming up, and so those things need to be reinvested. So there is work to be done. So as mentioned, it is very detailed in the investment policy, the government code, and the charter of what we can and cannot do as far as investments. And there is a investment team that makes those decisions together, and then we present it. So it wouldn't be by myself, but that's what we would continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cortez.
I have been managing the portfolio for 12 years now. Yes, it is a highly regulated position. The regulations come from the state, and then we have additional safeguards via the portfolio investment policy. So there's a lot of safeguards that are in place to protect taxpayer dollars. Now, what's important to understand in reference to the management of the portfolio is that if this were to be taken out and asked for a private management company to manage it, it would cost taxpayers, just for the management of the portfolio, anywhere from 10 basis points to as much as 25 basis points, which is between $150,000 to as much as $300,000. For those of you who are familiar with wealth management, you understand that this is how portfolios are managed. The city currently has a employee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The last one is Mr. Goodrich.
Well, it's been established that what we're able to invest in is very narrow in scope, highly regulated, and very limited. And that's a good thing, because we don't want people gambling with our money. These are short-term investments by nature, because we have to retain our liquidity. The types of securities are regulated. I mentioned earlier that 2 of our last 3 city treasurers have made mistakes that cost the city millions of dollars. The first one invested in mortgage-backed securities back in the 1990s for a term of 10 years. It didn't expire for 10 years. That was against the investment policy. And that's why, despite these regulations being in place, we've still found ourselves in problems multiple times with multiple treasurers. That's why it's a systemic problem. That's why we need to reform this position.
Thank you, sir. All right, the next question will start with Mr. Marshall. And the question is, what is your position on the new 1.5 cent sales tax initiative that will be on the ballot in June, and why?
I'm opposed to Measure SST. I think that it just puts off the day of reckoning for us as a city. We are broke. As you heard in the mayor's debate, we're number 4 on the city's on the state auditor's list of high-risk cities of default. That's out of 263 California cities, and we're number 4. Over the next, I think it's 6 years or something, we're number 1 when it comes to pensions. We've got a spending problem. We don't have a revenue problem. It's true that revenue has declined even before the pandemic, but expenses have continued to increase. And so what we need to do is we need to deal with the expenditure problem. We're not taxed too little, we spend too much. And as your city treasurer, I'm going to try to continue to bring that message to our council and say, we've got to do some things. Yes, they've got to be smart, and no, we can't do it all at once. But if we pass Measure SST, yeah, it will put off the day of reckoning for a while.
Thank you. Melissa Wright, you're next.
Yes, thank you. I don't think anybody likes extra taxes. I don't. But, there's always the but. One of the things about living in Torrance that is so important to me and for the future, and I plan on being here forever, is the safety of the city and feel comfortable and having it clean and bright. And the thought that we would be taking away any officers, police, in this day and age, especially if in the status of, if you listen to the national and even local crime rates, scares me. So if anything, we need more money, not less, for the police. And what better way is just this little bit. We are going to have to make cuts, and that's true. But please, every little bit is going to help for the safety, I think, of our city. And I'm going to stick with that. Before the county can come in with another sales tax and take it from us. This way it stays in Torrance. This sales tax portion will stay here with us. And that's an important part to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cortez.
As far as SST measure, on a personal note, I am not in favor for any additional taxes. Now, as city treasurer, it is nor positive nor negative because I have no policy authority. So it doesn't affect the treasurer's office. What is important for the community to understand that if I address you and any information that I provide will always be factual and verifiable. I know a comment was made in reference to mismanaging the portfolio, inaccurate. I am proud to say that during the 12 years that I have been managing the portfolio, I have generated millions of dollars that have been used towards the services this community demands and requires. And never has the state had to step in. Never have we been in violation to state code. Never have we been in violation of our investment policy. All verifiable, all factual.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Goodrich, you're next.
My position on SST, I'm in favor of it. This is a systemic problem the city's facing. The cuts have already been made. Our workforce today is approximately 15% less than what it was just 10 years ago. The systemic problem I refer to is the changing nature of society around us and the laws which govern us, over which we have no control. Utility users tax revenues are down. Sales tax revenues are down because of online shopping. The state has set these parameters for us and we have to abide by them. We have no control. We're going to continue losing money and the situation is going to continue to get worse. That's why I'm in favor of this. Finally, if we don't pass this, the county will pass their own sales tax measure. It might be a year from now, it might be 5 years from now. But once they do that, there's no going back. All that money that we generate here is going to go to the county and they're going to decide how to divvy it up as opposed to us retaining control right here in our own backyards.
Thank you. Mr. Griffiths.
Thank you. 8 years on the city council has given me the opportunity to see how we spend our money, what our costs are, and so on and so forth. The fact is that sales tax is our #1 source of revenue in the city, and it has been for a long, long, long time. Torrance has never raised the sales tax rate on its residents and businesses. It's been the same 1% since the sales tax was established by the state. Other sales tax increases have come into play, and those came into play through other agencies, that we get very little, if any, value from that sales tax that we as taxpayers pay. It's time that we give Torrance the money that we need to properly manage our city, to properly fund the things that you need. Our costs have gone up continuously. Legal costs, the cost of materials, the cost of cars, the cost of employees, all have gone up, yet we've never asked for a raise. So I'm in support.
All right, next question. We'll begin with Ms. Wright. So if the sales tax measure fails, how can the city treasurer mitigate the effect on the city finances?
Unfortunately, sorry to say that the treasurer will not have much to do with that. The only thing the treasurer can do, and that's if the duties are restored, is maintain and oversee the monies coming in and going out. So if more isn't coming in, we don't have more to do. So that doesn't really affect us. I would, though, love to talk with City Council and really propose them looking at the budget every fine-tooth comb, with a fine-tooth comb, and taking out whatever doesn't need to be made, but that's what's going to have to be done anyway. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cortez.
If the measure doesn't pass, that is correct. It will reduce the portfolio. Now, as the city treasurer, one of the things that is in the position that you can do is generate other revenue sources. By being creative with our vendors, you can create other sources, as I did when I've been in office, to generate more money for city services. So while it is the responsibility of the city treasurer to manage the funds, it is also incumbent on the city treasurer to be innovative, to figure out new ways to generate income so that we can provide the services much needed and what this community demands. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Goodrich.
If the sales tax measure fails, what would I do to help the city? Well, that's not entirely within my purview, as the city council is the body that adopts the budget. However, the city treasurer does come up with their own budget and submit it for approval. So I would go through line by line within that budget and try to find ways to find efficiencies in the office. Furthermore, technology. When I was on the Torrance City Council, I worked a great deal on technology. In fact, I brought a company that has hundreds of employees to the city of Torrance through my lobbying efforts, and also worked to establish Torrance as a technology center into the future by making changes with the way we do business here. So I would take a look at the technology being used and see if there's other ways we can find efficiencies within the office to save money. Finally, my plan calls for reducing the pay of the city treasurer, which would save approximately $100,000 each year.
Thank you. Mr. Griffiths.
Thank you. As has been said, if the sales tax measure doesn't pass, there really won't be much of a portfolio to manage. It will certainly be a lot less than it is now. But there certainly are some things that the treasurer's office can do, but it probably won't make much of a dent in the overall situation. But things like negotiating our brokerage fees, negotiating our credit card processing fees, things like that, which should probably be done anyway. But those are types of things that can be looked at. Obviously, making sure that we're making the best possible investments to generate the best possible yield, but also maintaining the balance between liquidity and safety. But that's pretty much the extent of what the treasurer's office can do, and certainly the treasurer's office does maintain a budget, which obviously needs to be reviewed and is reviewed on an annual basis.
Thank you. Mr. Marshall?
Yes, I concur that there's not a lot that the treasurer can do if the sales tax measure doesn't pass. You need to understand that it's projected to bring in $18 million a year. Of that, $10 million is going to be used per year, is going to be used on public safety. Another $5 million will go into restoring our depleted reserves, of which are down less than 2 weeks of operating expenses. And then there's another $3 million for city pay raises. And then we have another $1 million for cybersecurity. Remember, we were hacked. So that's pretty well all spent. Now, there'll be income and outflow as the income will come in before it has the outflow. and there'll be some timing issues and may be able to make a little bit of money, but as a general rule, we're broke, and there won't be much to manage. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We will move on to the next question. And we will begin with Ms. Cortez. What is your strategy for avoiding potentially costly accounting errors?
Accounting is not what the city treasurer does. The city treasurer is to report on the portfolio, to report the earnings, to report how the portfolio is diversified, to make sure that it's following the investment policy, okay? That is what falls under the city treasurer's purview. Now, within that and cash management duties, there are data entry that occurs. And as every day, they are always verified, made sure that they balance. The department balances with another department to make sure that there's checks and balances, so there's always oversight. So accounting, no. Data entry, yes. And that's how it works. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Goodrich.
I'm not positive, but I think the questioner may have been referring to the numerous transaction errors that occurred in the past. Now that the duties have been transferred to city staff, those have largely been taken care of. When you're dealing with a portfolio of this size, there's always going to be a couple errors. Those come out in the wash, you find those. But my plan to fix that would be to allow the staff to do their jobs. They're the ones that are trained to do this. Next thing would be to hire a deputy treasurer to oversee the operations in the department. And finally, as another step in the process, providing oversight. Me as city treasurer, I would do that and provide yet another layer of oversight.
Thank you. Mr. Griffiths.
Thank you. A strategy for managing the office is really pretty straightforward. It's very similar to managing my own business and the finances of my business, making sure I have top-notch employees who are properly trained, who are properly qualified to be doing the jobs that they do. Also having a good interaction with the finance department, which is certainly something that I've been doing now for 8 years already as a city council member. So I think it'll be a real easy thing for me to make sure that we hire and train and manage the office in a smooth manner, and utilizing my experience running a multi-million-dollar business, it should not be a difficult task for me to take on.
Thank you. And Mr. Marshall.
One of the beauties of going on the same question after several people, all the good ideas have been tossed out there. Let me just say that I agree with much of what has been said. We do have to have qualified and trained staff because the city treasurer is not the person sitting down at the computer or collecting the funds. It's a management function. And as your city treasurer, that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be managing things. And I'm going to be your eyes and ears in that office. And we will make sure that we're transparent and that we report what's going on. But as far as the actual day-to-day things, that's what we hire staff for, that's what we train for, and as your city treasurer, we'll make sure that everything comes out in the wash, as they say, and that it balances, and we know where every penny is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall. And that's the very reason we change each time when we start a question with another person, because then you get to be first sometimes or second sometimes. So, Ms. Wright.
Yes. I agree that the financial, I would say if we're watching the financial transactions, not just the accounting transactions, it really does come down to checks and balances. And when things do balance, then you're doing okay. But that doesn't mean you still don't need an oversight or an independent audit to make sure. And my OCD would kick in where I am one of those ones that I have to be to the penny correct before I can sleep. So this is where I would spend a lot of my time. But if we have errors, they're going to be fixed, they're going to be caught, and we just have to have the ability and the to get in there and do those transactions and audits and keep everything in line with our checks and balances. And I think we will continue to run smoothly that way. Thanks.
All right, we're coming up to our last question. So, and it's going to begin with you, Ms. Wright. No, I'm sorry. Goes back to Mr. Goodrich. So, how would you define risk management in relation to your responsibilities and obligations as city treasurer?
How would I define risk management? Well, I'm happy to take that question because by day, I'm a risk manager. And I advise $100 million companies on how to manage their risk on a day-to-day basis in their operations. When it comes to the city treasurer's office, I think the best way we can do risk management is the C part of my CPR plan. Conduct an independent third-party audit to certify that appropriate checks and balances exist. I've looked into this. This would cost approximately $20,000. The other part of my CPR plan, R, reduce the pay, would save approximately $100,000 a year. So what does that mean? We could do this independent third-party audit, have yet another layer of transparency and oversight every single year, and still come out way ahead. How's that for a return on investment?
Thank you. Mr. Griffiths.
Thank you. Risk management is has been clearly defined in the investment policy of the City Treasurer's Office, and it's reviewed on an annual basis and presented to Council and the Financial Advisory Committee for approval on an annual basis. Certainly having qualified people in the department, starting with the treasurer and anyone who works for the treasurer, is a key component of making sure that you're managing your risk. If you don't have people who are capable of managing those duties, your risk goes way up. And so I think I'm well qualified to be able to manage the risk in the office from my qualifications, making sure that we hire the appropriate people, which is something I've done in my business, and I think that it will be easily managed from those perspectives.
Thank you. Mr. Marshall.
My approach to the investment policy would certainly be to pursue low-risk investments. And you would do that because you need to maintain liquidity. You need to maintain your cash position so that you can pay the bills. You can make the payroll. We're in a tough situation right now. We don't have a lot of extra money. And so my focus would be on keeping the bills paid and keeping money there to pay the bills. Again, this is a highly regulated office. There are rules to follow. I'm not the only person making the decisions, but I would advocate conservative investments, low-risk investments, things to keep us solvent as a city. Thank you.
And Ms. Wright.
Yes. As mentioned prior, the risk management comes into play with all the guidelines and rules and basically what we can and cannot invest in. The risk is there, but it is low, and that's how it stays. And as I said before, we have a group. It's not just a one-person decision on these investments. We have an investment committee. And my importance, something that concerns me right now, is that committee needs to be fully functioning and have everybody in attendance. So that means the city treasurer, the deputy city treasurer, once we get one, so we don't have that, the finance director, the city manager, and maybe even the city attorney. So we have to get everybody together to work together, and then we will be following the rules, and we will be doing our job and for the least risk. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Okay, now we were finished with the questioning, and now we're moving on to, okay, sorry about that.
No, it's okay. So in reference to risk management, yes, the job is highly regulated by the state, by our investment policy. The state may have wider parameters, and it is up to the city treasurer to investigate and find out if we need to be more restrictive. Historically, we have been a conservative city, and we have restricted our investments much more than what the state allows. Now, in reference to the day-to-day operations, yes, it's key to have the best qualified people. There's been a lot of turnaround in the department. That is a fact. To be able to terminate people in a department in a civil service process requires much, much, much paperwork and approval from the city manager. So this is not a sole decision. Yet, when I finally found a deputy that knew how to do the job, council was okay with the city manager firing my deputy when I took medical leave.
Thank
Fact.
you very much. All right, that's the end of the questioning. We will now start with the 2-minute closing statements from the candidates, and we're going to start with Melissa Wright and go across this way.
Okay. All right, once again, thanks again for being here tonight and listening to us. The election of the next city treasurer is unique and an important one. Though the only qualification to run for this elected office is that you are a resident of Torrance and you're a registered voter, I hope you want more or demand more from your city attorney. The future role of this position is unclear. Torrance voters will be electing a treasurer that may hold very limited duties and will serve more in an oversight position. With the realignment of the treasurer's duties, the concern of checks and balances pertaining to the city's finances is of utmost importance to me. When elected, this will remain my top priority. Whether this entails full-time or part-time, I am willing to do whatever it takes. I am not running for treasurer for political gain, a pension, or high salary. I am running to serve the residents of Torrance, bringing the much-needed confidence, reliability, trust, and transparency to this office. Excuse me. With my financial background, leadership experience, and commitment, I have what it takes to handle whatever treasurer duties and responsibilities are assigned to me. When I make a commitment, I keep it. I am a lifelong learner. I have the curiosity and tenacity to learn whatever it takes to fulfill my responsibilities. I want to be the next city treasurer. I ask you to vote right for Torrance City Treasurer. If you have any concerns or questions regarding my qualifications or desire to serve, please ask or even read my brochures out in the foyer. I want you all to have the facts to make an educated decision in this important election. Thank you so much for your understanding and your consideration tonight. That's right for City Treasurer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marshall.
Thank you for coming to this forum this evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. Appreciate it. I currently serve as a Chief Financial Officer of the California Taxpayer Action Network. We're a grassroots organization that exposes waste, fraud, and abuse in government spending. We save your hard-earned tax dollars and make sure they're used for the intended purpose. I'm the candidate for City Treasurer who opposes Measure SST. In fact, I authored the argument against Measure SST in your sample ballot. I encourage you to read it. I defeated Measure J. The council planned to make the office of City Treasurer appointed and not elected. In fact, had Measure J passed, we would not be sitting here tonight. And if elected your treasurer, I will reclaim the cash management duties of our city treasurer taken in violation of the charter. 4 years ago, our city council took away the state treasurer's cash management duties and gave them to the unelected finance director. That violated our city charter. Section 603 is clear. The city treasurer is to receive and safely keep all monies and to pay out all monies. The incumbent retaliated and stopped showing up for work. This created an emergency when passwords to access the funds were needed and she was unavailable. The city council responded by attacking the elected status of the city treasurer with Measure J, attempting to make the position appointed instead of elected. Voters wisely rejected that move. Now, 4 years later, those most responsible for this fiasco want to be your next city treasurer. I suggest you don't give them the job. If you want a watchdog in office, not a lapdog for City Hall insiders, then vote G. Rick Marshall for city treasurer. The job is about public service, not self-service. I respectfully ask for your vote during the coming election season, starting May 9th and ending June 7th. It used to be an election day, but it no longer is.
Okay, let's remember about the personal comments. Mike Griffiths.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting on the forum tonight and all the volunteers and your hard work to make it happen. And also for all of you here present today. It's important that you participate, and the fact that you're here shows that you're concerned about our city. The City Council voted essentially a no confidence on the treasurer in 2018. Things have not improved since that time. That's why I'm running, because I think we need to restore the integrity of the city treasurer's office, and that's what I plan to do should I be elected. Taking salary and benefits and not responding to the needs of the city is just not acceptable. Responding to staff for the various duties, including showing up at council meetings, presenting your budget reports, is a critical component of being the city treasurer. I plan to do those things. The treasurer's seat's been vacant for most of the past 4 years and continues to be to this day. I've been the most outspoken council member about the ongoing issues on the treasurer's office, and taking matters into my own hands as a problem solver, I decided to fix the problem myself by running for the city treasurer's office and filed to do so in April 2021, over a year ago. You've heard the 4 reasons why you should choose me: experience, dependability, respectability, and integrity. The treasurer's election is more important than ever. Don't be confused by the many choices and the incumbent running as if there's not a problem. If the voters aren't careful, the uninformed voters will choose the wrong choice. Once again, unlike city council, where it requires a majority vote to do anything, the city treasurer acts as the sole decision maker. You, the voters, must be careful in your selection. There is no runoff election, and you only get one chance to get it right. I am overwhelmingly endorsed by city leaders because they know that I am the best choice for our city. Seek out the most qualified candidate with the best record of representing Torrance, and you'll end up voting for the second name on the ballot, me, Mike Griffiths. Please visit my website, ilikemikefortorrance.com, for more information. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Goodrich.
Thank you so much for joining us all here tonight so that you can become educated and make an informed vote on June 7th. I'm former Councilmember Tim Goodrich, and I'm running for Torrance City Treasurer to fix the problems that exist in that office. My plan to restore faith in that office is CPR. Conduct an independent third-party audit to certify appropriate checks and balances exist, professionalize the position by modernizing it, and establishing minimum qualifications. I think this is critical to the functioning of the office. And R, reduce the exorbitant pay, saving the city taxpayers $100,000 each and every year. How will I accomplish this reform? Just look at my record while on the city council. I improved public safety by getting budgeted a community emergency response team volunteer coordinator position. Advocated for technology businesses, establishing a tech advisory commission, and also bringing a company with hundreds of employees to the city. Initiated the Old Torrance revitalization effort and enhanced sustainability. By day, I'm a risk manager and investor. I also attended USC, where I got a master's in public administration and was a city and county management fellow. Using these background and qualifications, I intend to reform this position into an oversight position, just like many of our neighboring cities have done successfully. If you want to fix our broken treasurer's office and reduce the extreme pay, vote for Tim Goodrich for Torrance City Treasurer on June 7th. My website is timgoodrich.com, and thank you for your consideration.
Ms. Cortez.
I have no secrets from the public. Much has been said about my attendance. I will not hide anything from the community. I was out sick for a year and then returned and have completed all my duties since I returned. Some people may ask, you were out for a year, why didn't you just quit? Why? Because you elected me to do a job for you. I should have only been out sick for 6 months. It turned out to be a year. But I knew I needed to come back and, if nothing else, inform the public of the things that are going on in the treasurer's office. I have nothing to hide. There is a power grab that is going on, and what the community needs to understand, that this isn't about me. This is about your voice, your elected position, what the charter says that this elected position is supposed to do for you, the people, this community. Now, if you feel that I have done an adequate job of representing this community, I ask for your vote on June 7th and re-elect me as your city treasurer. But more importantly than even asking you for that is, regardless of whoever you choose, make your voice known to the leadership that you elect. You tell the leadership if you want duties restored, if you want the charter changed. You need to be vocal, because once you lose your voice, to regain that power is nearly impossible. This is about the community and the elected position. That is the truth. It is up to you to decide on June 7th. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, give a hand, please, for all the candidates. And I think we'd also like to give a hand to our timer. She
Yes.
did a beautiful job. And a hand for the audience, not a single peep out of anyone of you. You're wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. You made my job easier. So on the behalf of the League of Women Voters, Torrance area, I want to thank the candidates for running the office of mayor and treasurer and for their participation in this evening. I also want to thank the audience for coming to meet the candidates. So the deadline to register or re-register vote in the June 7th primary election is May 23rd, 2022. If you have moved or changed your name or wish to change your party affiliation since you last registered, you must re-register by that date. Otherwise, if you want to go and do the provisional ballot, you can still do that up until the day you vote. Online registration is available at the Secretary of State's website. That's sos.ca.gov. And remember to vote by mail or the polls. Encourage your family, friends, and neighbors to vote. It's absolutely our right. It's how we save our democracy. Thank you for participating in these candidate forums, and I turn the meeting back to Monica Fredericks.